Live?
We are. How you doing, Matt?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Can't complain. I love it. It's great holiday. Everything's been good. Sunny Florida still here. The weather's so beautiful here in Florida, but it looks like you guys are starting to get some nice weather up there now, right?
We got some sun today, yesterday. I mean, we had some storms yesterday for Easter, but it was beautiful. We were able to sit outside all evening, and then today is beautiful out too. I've been out with the dogs, and now I'm just going to go after this. I gotta go to the dog park for a little bit if it's still light out. So yeah. Oh, we're not live. Dang it! I admitted them all. I didn't press it again. There we go. All right, we got people over on Facebook. Welcome. All the people over here on Zoom. Welcome. Man, beautiful day. You're right though. It's probably much more beautiful down there.
It is, but usually this time of year it's hot. It's usually like now it's like, all right, it starts getting uncomfortable. So, uh, Edwin, hey, what's going on over on Facebook? Actually, my Facebook chat's actually working this week.
Oh, there you go. There we go.
Nice.
I'm pulling up Facebook chat now. So, hey guys, if you guys are over on Facebook and you want to join us over here on Zoom, feel free. I am about to drop the link into the below so you can hop in here and join us and ask questions because this is a time for you to ask questions and learn from Mark, which Mark has some crazy experience. Mark, what kind of experience do you have when it comes to seller financing?
It's going to be, I hate to say it, next month, 30 years. I started May 18th in 1995.
Just so you know,
Started,
Mark, I'm 32, just so you know
wow. So you're 2 years old when I first started. That's great.
that.
So it kind of gives you, so I started out first originally, well, I did my first deal before you're born now. If you think about that, I was 19, but then I really got into it when I was 25. I was in I live in South Florida now, but at the time I was in the Baltimore, DC area. And I got into real estate banking. That's how I really got started surrounding myself with my clients were investors, became friends with. So I started surrounding myself with like-minded individuals. And then I just started doing all these different type of creative seller financing strategies through the years. So like all these different strategies subject to agreement for deed, land contract, installment sales, sandwich lease options. It took me, I would do those strategies probably, 2 to 3 years at a time, and then just learn all the different ones. And now I consolidate all these strategies into one tool belt, depending on really what the seller's needs are. And then done some land developments, um, residential. I've done about $500 million of real estate transactions over the years. So seen it all pretty much. And then you even come up with different ideas in creative seller financing, things that are not even a terminology to make deals work and make it a win for the seller, a win for us as investor. And it depends on what your exit strategy is. If you're looking to hold it, you're looking to wrap it, sell it. For me, my go-to is I like buying through seller financing and sell through seller financing. And I like to negotiate a low down payment with the seller, finding out what their needs, go under contract, find a nice long due diligence period, and then go get my buyer and use my buyer's capital to buy the property and stay in the middle and create the arbitrage. So I make money in the front end, as these guys do what's called an assignment fee. And then like the monthly cash flow. My average cash flow is about $500 a month. I've had some more than that, some less than that, depending on the equity, but that's my average. I have one that I'm making more than that, about $1,200 a month. And I've actually purchased a multifamily with zero down, and that one I'm cash flowing roughly about $6,700 a month. So each one of them's a little different. So Rob's back. Hey Rob, how you doing, man? So that's my go-to strategy on that particular thing. So
Man, so you're talking about a due diligence period. How long are you looking at for due diligence? How long are you looking at a due diligence period, and why are you looking at a due
yeah,
diligence
the
period?
diligence inspection period, whatever you want to call it. You want to inspect the property, check the roof, the basements, all the go-to stuff, the major stuff. But at the same time, why I like doing that is because it gives me enough time to go out and locate and put my buyer into the property, or my tenant buyer if I'm doing a rent to own, anything on those type of lines. So that's why I like a long inspection slash due diligence period. So I don't have to technically close on it until I have that all lined up. So, but there's sometimes I will go ahead and close on it if it's a home run smoking deal. But then there's other times because I always like to try to get into my properties with no money down, even make money on the front end. with my larger. So let's say, for example, I negotiate with a seller. I get in, it costs me $10,000 to get into it. I go find my tenant buyer. My tenant buyer is giving me like 20, 25,000. So out of the 10, 20, 25,000, I give the seller 10,000. And then whatever after marketing and, miscellaneous fees, I'll probably make a $10,000, $12,000 spread on the front on that. So, and these guys doing assignments, wholesaling or these type of things, they make that same amount on the front end, but then stay in the middle, and then you also create cash flow. And then at the end, depending on your term, 5, 7, 30 year, whatever it may be, then you get the back end spread of that as well. And you typically what you try to negotiate a lower payment, and then you have a higher payment, and you make that spread over the time. And then also as you're paying your loan down, with your seller or whatever strategy you're using, you're getting a spread because you try to bump it up a little bit. Say for example, I did one recently where my interest rate, my seller's 4%, and my end buyer's interest rate was 7.75. So I was creating the arbitrage spread besides the price of the property. So, anyways,
Okay. Man, there's a lot there. A lot to unpack under that one. Okay. So, guys, this is a time for you. You can hop in here, ask questions. This is a great time for you to hop in here and learn if you're brand new to seller financing. Any creative ways, sub two, um, all kinds. I mean, if you are new to all this and you are looking to, um, you know, get into it, maybe you have a few properties or you're just brand new to real estate, this is a great spot to learn. So there are no dumb questions. So do not be scared. Everybody has to start somewhere, and that's why we're here. We're here to help you start and get started. So, Mark, go ahead and we'll answer Jay's question.
Yeah, Mark, hi. What do you typically use as a due diligence period? 30 days. What is your time frame that you like to use?
um, well, pleasure meeting you, Jay. What part of the country are you in?
I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Ah, beautiful area. I was just up in
Mm.
that area. I was in Lake Norman. You're not too far from
Okay.
me, right? I was out
Not too
there
far.
2 weeks ago. I was up there looking at some property. We're looking at buying something in that area, but I don't know if that's going to be the area. But anyways, um, it depends on it really depends on the sellers what my inspection slash due diligence period is. I like to go like 45 days, 60 days. That depends. But what I do is I tell the seller, hey, you know what? Just take your time. We're not in a rush, whatever works for you. So I don't put any pressure on the seller. But if they're financial and they're not making payments, then that's a different story. I want to get them quick as possible. But typically, I work around the seller's needs and say, hey, this way you have a buyer, and then it gives me some time to go out and find my tenant buyer to put in the property. And we'll have to do some showings like on a weekend or something like that. And what I normally do is have people drive by. So kind of tell them exactly what I'm doing. I'm taking the agreements between me and them, and then I qualify people, I underwrite people to be able to put them into the property, and kind of go down that process. But we have one right now under contract. We're not closing until September. So we have plenty of time because they know that we're committed, we're ready, and it gives us enough time to kind of line up we're probably not going to start marketing for that one until probably June, for a tenant buyer in that property. But we also have people already in our database that are ready to go. So it depends on the area. So anyways, I like minimum 45 days out to 60 days. But when you're going to know within a week or two of starting to market that property, if that's going to go, if it's going to take some time. But also you need to make sure you have a property that is going to move quickly. Like I have a buy box, like minimum population for me is 15, 20,000. I like homes, whatever the median price range is. I like to go 20% above and 20% below because I know that's where mainly the buyer pools are going to be. And then I also like homes in nice neighborhoods. And I like to find people that have young children where the children want to live there and grow up and they don't want to keep moving around. I don't want to buy properties like that in war zones because then it's going to be
Right.
harder to put my tenant buyer in that property. So
Right.
that's for me on this strategy. Now, if it's a multifamily, or mobile home parks, then that's a different story. But typically, my strategy through this on single family homes, nice areas, and finding a nice family that wants to live there in that particular area, so they want to raise their children in that community.
Good. Thank you.
Awesome. And guys, feel free to raise your hands if you have questions, drop it in the chat. We prefer you to hop on here and turn your camera on And then also, if you can, just unmute yourself. That way we can hear you and have an actual conversation with you. Makes things a little bit easier. And if you're over on Facebook, feel free to drop them in the chat. We got one that just popped up. How do you typically approach sellers when pitching a subject to deal?
Okay. So first of all, I back up and I'll dumb it down a little bit first before I get to that. Usually I'll say, hey, when I call people up, because the seller's head's going to spin on a subject too. So what I normally like to do is like, hey, would you be willing to rent the property to us for a few years? And then we'll close on it. I'll take care of the maintenance and repairs. If they say yes, then I know they're going to be open to terms. But typically a subject to deal, if they're not financial distress, I'll never pitch a subject to. Hey, Mr. Seller, keep the deed in your name and transfer the property over to me. They're going to look at me like I'm like four eyes. I'm crazy. So then I'll just kind of find out their needs and pitch a different type of strategy. But on a subject to, mainly they're probably distress behind on the mortgage. The property may need some repairs. So then at that point, I'll work up my numbers and then go through the presentation and explain what I'm going to do and then what's the benefit to them. It really comes down to the benefit to them and how you're helping them out. It could be bringing the mortgage current and saving their credit. It could be giving them some money to help them move and they can't because there's no equity in the property, or they need to fix the property up because it can't sell the way the property is conditioned. So those are the type of factors. So depending on really what the seller's needs are and what the issues are, I will go into that and really talk about that and how I can help them solve the problem and, pay them to move, bring moving trucks over. So that's usually a subject to seller on that particular one. If it's not a subject to seller and it's a different type of approach, then I would end up approaching it a little differently on something like that. So usually I always start out, would you be willing to rent the property to us and close on a few years, and then try to pull out all the what their pain point is and what's the problem, their motivation, and then kind of go down that path and really help them out. Hopefully that helped there.
Awesome. Sweet. And then I don't have any other questions yet. So, guys, feel free to ask questions. So, Mark.
Yeah.
Oh,
Mark, what these days, what is more palatable to a person using terminology like subject to owner financing, lease option?
So again, so what I do is I dumb it down when I talk to a seller, and I don't even say lease option because I had years ago I had a seller one time I was pitching a lease option, and she's like, no, I really don't know. But then we started later on the conversation. She goes, oh, I will be open to a rent to own. So I always like to say, hey, would you be willing to rent the property to us for a few years, and then we close on it, and then we'll take care of the maintenance repairs. That's how I usually start out to really dumb it down, and then if they are, then I kind of start talking to them. But I also like to, before I even get to that, I always like to say, ask questions about the property and then go to a point like, oh, it sounds like a beautiful property. Why would you want to sell? And that's going to pull the motivation out why they want to sell. It sounds like a beautiful property. Why would you want to sell? And then you're going to find out, and then you're going to find out their motivation on it. Sometimes, like if they're financial distress, they're going to keep it to themselves until you build a rapport. But the other side of this is when you're looking to do a seller financing or creative terms, and this is where a lot of investors go wrong. When you're doing a seller financing creative type of deal, you have to think of it. It's a marriage. You're in a long-term commitment with the seller, whatever the term is, 3, 5, 7 years. So the first time you have that conversation with the seller, you have to build a rapport. It's all about relationship, building rapport, and that's how you're going to get these deals. The numbers are all going to be the same. They're probably getting pitched by other investors, kind of going down the same path. I come across it all the time. Hey, yeah, I'm not interested. I've been pitched with this, but I just build a rapport with them, build a rapport and trying to find out what the needs are, and then how you can be creative enough to kind of solve their problem and come up with a solution. That's really what it comes down to. So again, and then later on in the phone call later on, then I start saying, hey, would you be willing to rent the property to us for a few years, and then you close on it? But yes, relationship is 100%, and that's how you get the deals, is all about relationship. So 80% of my phone call the first time is getting to know them, and I want them to know me as well. I want them to know about me, where I'm from, my parents, where we just start building a relationship. Like how we first started the conversation and you said where you're at, and I'm like, oh, I was just in Lake Norman. So if you're a seller, then I would go down that conversation with you and spend more time with you talking about that. Hey, what area of Lake Mormon do you like? How do you like, what area you been in? You know, what's your sports team? Do you have any recommendations? What do you think of the market? Whatever it may be, I'll just start going down and just spending so much time in like, oh, is your children still live in the area? Um, do you have any children? Do you have any grandchildren? You know, what type of work do you do? And I kind of explain a little bit about myself, and I want them to know me. You know, if they're into sports, you know, what's their football team? I'll tell them about my team, whatever it may be. Build a rapport, build a rapport. It's really what it comes down to, is building that relationship. Hopefully that helped.
Relationships are everything.
Hmm.
Awesome. John's got a question.
Hey, John, how you doing?
Good. I was on last week or a couple weeks ago, and looks like we got the deal where my neighbor wants to do it now. Now he ended up in the hospital again, so that has slowed some things up, but it also speeds things up. Um, one question is, um, what if you're in a sub two deal and the person dies before you close?
Then at that point, you have to deal with the heirs. That's at that
Gotcha.
point, you know, whoever's the next one. So, is there any children or anybody else? And I think you mentioned, I look at so many deals, so it's hard to remember every single deal.
Yeah. So the children, he has some other debts, and they don't want anything to do with the property. Um, my numbers are. It looks like he owes 141,000 on the house. ARV would be 370. Needs about 100,000. If I was to go the nicest, I could probably get away with 30 to 40 and make it nicely rentable for about 2,500 a month. His mortgage is $1,000 a month. It's at 4.1%. Still has 28 years left. House is probably currently around 200 to 220, how it sits. So it's a good deal to go ahead and do. But this is my first one. So I guess I get an LLC, then I make a trust in this case. And then the trust gets it under contract. I do title search. And then
Yep. Let me back up immediately, and then we'll get to that.
Okay.
What I would do immediately is get one of the family members involved and have them get them into the trust, so you don't have to go through probate. So that still gives you, if something happens to them, that still gives you time to kind of work through the process with whoever is the next in kin. So that's what I would do. I'm just telling you, again, I'm not an attorney. I'm just kind of
Right.
explaining what I would do. So I would
Okay.
have that immediately into a trust with them. So then they have the right to do it, and then have them also do what's called a limited power of attorney. So they can call the lender and speak on the lender and do whatever on their behalf immediately to do that. Because if it goes to probate, you know, if something happens, it goes to probate, then this becomes a big problem.
It takes a
So I
long
would go
time.
down that. Yep. So, all right. So that's what I would do first. And then the next thing is technically, yeah, you just create an LLC. I like to do my LLCs in Wyoming, you know, for, you know, anonymity and a little bit of asset protection type of situation. And then you
Right.
just create a trust. But I mean, to do all that stuff, you can get it under contract first. You know, just get it under
Okay.
contract first.
So like what name is on the contract?
Whatever the trust name, that's how I do mine.
Whatever the trust
I
name.
put my
Okay.
trust name. Yep. So
Gotcha. So
let's
I can go
say,
tomorrow and do that. All right.
yep, you can lock it up immediately, you know,
Okay.
but
And does it
you
have
still
to
want to get
be
it.
notarized?
No, not a contract, but the trust,
Okay.
all that stuff needs to be notarized. So I would get
Sounds
all
good.
that, and yep, I would get all that in place first. Have them, you know, whoever's the family that will be in charge, have them get in there, and so they can sign on behalf. They can sign the documents.
Okay.
So and enter into a contract with you and then your trust. So that's kind of what I would do, and then whatever the trust name is, like I would. I wouldn't put the street name as a trust, because lenders are starting to be aware of that, and they're starting to do on sales clause. So what I would do is, like, say whatever the last name is, like, again, let's say I'm the seller, my last name is Monroe. So I would create a trust, Monroe dash, you know, OH dash 01 as a trust,
Okay.
you know, for the contract. You know, so
Gotcha.
just do, yep. What I would normally do is do, depending on your state, I just do a contract and then do a subject to addendum and just kind of spell it all out there. And then at that point, just start the process and just open title, make sure you have a title company that understands the transactions. And then it gives you time to kind of go through the process and setting up your LLCs and do all that good stuff. That's what I would end up doing.
Awesome. Okay. I think that's all my questions for now.
What type of
I'll have
contract?
some.
So you're set, Mark, for like just for everybody. When you're saying get it under contract, you're not doing a purchase contract for like a subject, like on a subject too, are you?
You can, like in Florida, I do that. I'll use the depends on your state. Like in Florida, I will do my typical Florida state contract and then just do an addendum subject to addendum. So, but you can use any type of contract, to get it under. It doesn't really matter what kind of, it's a purchase and sales contract. Some states won't allow you to use their state contract unless you're in a realtor. So just check on that. But, there's simple contracts you can do, just a purchase and sales contract and attach addendum to it. And then the title company will know what to do. But then usually I also have disclosures in there as well in the beginning of the contract, like, hey, this is a subject to, the loan's not going to be paid off. It could affect a whole bunch of documents, and you can have Chat GTP to kind of help you with those disclosures.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you very much.
So just just move it along. So especially if it's back in the hospital again, just kind of
Yeah,
at
back and
least,
forth.
yeah, you want to at least get it in there. So if something happens to them, the property won't have to go through probate.
Okay. Sounds good. Appreciate it.
Awesome. If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them here on the chat or on Facebook and unmute yourself and ask away on Zoom as well. Let's see, we got Ivan. Do you have a question?
I do. How's it going, guys?
Good. How
Hey,
are
man,
you?
how you doing?
Good, good. All right. So I have a scenario. I got two deals kind of going on right now, and that I may need some help with, or just questions. So I have a gentleman who's 88 years old, no family, no family, no heirs, nothing to leave his property behind. He does have a reverse mortgage on it, which seems to be the challenge. He is living on Social Security for about $1,100 a month, plus the $800 in the reverse mortgage. He owes about $153 on the reverse mortgage. The home easily is $250. This is in Florida, Floral City, Florida. He's got his dream would be to sell the house and buy an RV and travel. That's what he told me. I don't know. I don't know if that's just a cop out due to the reverse mortgage and trying to sell things and get out of that. But that's what he told me. And I think the last big thing is he has a lot of personal items and stuff in the home, and the big shed in the back is full of just stuff.
What's he gonna do with it?
He's okay with just letting it go and just taking his personal belongings. And then I told him, I would just do my own auction or sell it or dump it or whatever. I said I could handle all that. But I think for me, how would I take that over with having this dang reverse mortgage?
Sure.
I think that's the biggest challenge.
You said he's 88 years old. You said?
Yes.
How is his health?
Not great, but he is moving.
And where's he moving to?
Well, I meant like he's mobile. He's moving around, walking and stuff.
Oh, okay. Got it. Okay.
He has no plan besides the RV.
Okay. So I've done stuff like this. What I've done is I've actually had the seller go, how's his credit? Do you know?
I don't. It's a great question.
I've had the seller go take a loan out for the RV, and we made payments. So whatever his payment was, like what I always had the payment sent directly to, he went through the credit union to get a loan for the RV. So on the 20th of every month, we sent the payment in to make the payment on his behalf. So what we did is in the portal, for the payment portal, we created a Gmail, so that Gmail goes to him and us, and we can all get into it. So then the funds came directly out of a bank account. So that's kind of how we set it up, and we made payments so then he can go off and do what he wants. Problem is would he say you make the payments on a camper? Does he still have enough income to be able to pay for the food, the fuel, the campsites, or wherever he's going to stay?
$1,100 a month. I don't know. Yeah,
Don't
this will
know.
be a question. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it would be. It depends on where he goes. I mean, there might be some places he might be able to, you know. And then you would end up, when something happens, you could set up where you have the property. So when you would have to just pay off that loan at that time, turn around and sell the property. You could technically still do it. You could take it and sell the property as is, and then pay him some monthly payments on it. You don't have to wait for him to pass. You can just take it over and just sell it like a wholesale type of situation or whatever. Or if you want to take it over and keep the payments, you have a lot of options there that you can do. Leave the mortgage in place or take it over, because you said he's getting $800 a month. So he's getting 1,100 from Social Security and 800 from the reverse a month.
Correct.
So, and you can give him some money. You can pay that $800 a month too to him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that in there, that could be the camper too, you know, that type of stuff. Because you got to play with the numbers and really figure out what he really needs. But then the other side of it is you have to think about, you know, in 2-3 years, if he gets ill, where is he going to go? What's going to happen to him?
Yeah.
He has no friends.
Just the neighbors. Yeah.
And are his neighbors friends?
Yeah. They're his friends. Yeah.
So what you have to talk that process through to him. You know, you gotta, like, you know, what's going on there, you know, that type of thing. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of different processes that you have to go through to see where he's gonna, like, if he ends up in a home, like, his health is good now, but what happens in 5 years?
Yeah. No,
So you got to really have him visualize what it's going to be like. You know, is he gonna end up in a camper? You know, just stay it there. I mean, some people have done that. You know, just planted the camper at one place, and you know, and then what? In that camper, you could take it back or donate it to charity. There's a
Mhm.
lot of different things.
And specifically with the reverse mortgage, so even if I help him buy the RV or he gets a loan for an RV, I'm making those payments. The reverse mortgage, are you saying to turn around and sell that right away? Like, I take care of the property in the meantime, he gets his RV.
You can do that. You got to look at the rate on the reverse mortgage, because it might make sense keeping it there. You know, you got to look at your numbers. You got to play your numbers out, like look at all the options, go through it, like keeping it there, maybe paying it off. The rates are high right now, so that might be a challenge at that point. So you have to run through your process and that. What are you going to do? You're going to turn around and sell it, make a profit. Um, you know, even if you make 50,000 and you give this guy 50,000, help him out. You know, there's a lot of things that you can do. You can kind of help him through the process too.
Yeah.
Um, just
So
kind of, you know, you go ahead.
I'm sorry. You can pay directly into the reverse mortgage to pay the balance down? I don't know how it works.
It depends on the lender. Usually
Oh.
what happens is that typically you leave the reverse mortgage, and then when he passes, then you end up paying the property off. You know, what would you want to do with it? What were your thoughts?
Rent it. It's a great property. It's a
Rent
huge
it?
lot too. Yeah.
All right. So so you could do that. I mean, I've done those on reverse mortgages as well, and just rented it. I did what's called a sandwich lease option, but this one you have equity, so you probably want to control it. So you do have that option to do that. So, and he could get to $800 a month from the reverse. Okay. So you do have a lot of options on that. So,
Okay.
and the property is in good shape.
Yeah. Very nice shape.
Okay. So yeah, you have some options there.
Thank you.
Yep. Just again, that's good that you found this problem and is what he wants to do. You know, you could even still technically do a sandwich lease option on that thing for, you know, let him go off for 5 years, and then he could technically come back, and you can make that money through that process. You know, that's another option.
Perfect.
I've done many of those in a situation where I rented it and then give the property back to the heirs, because at the end there was no equity. So you can kind of play it out. You know, could appreciate, you can play it out, and then you have that option. You know, if you have the deed, you can sell it when he passes. You can sell it and pay off the mortgage at that time, because the lender's going to require it, and then you can pay it off. And So what you might want to do is what I usually do on those is I usually do a month to month in my lease agreement, because if something happens to them and I need to sell it, or you could do a 6-month lease and then buy them out. You have a few options there.
Yep. That makes sense.
We're going to stay on this subject for a minute. Marcus, do you have a question regarding this topic? Because I know, Ivan
Nope,
has another
not that
question.
topic. Totally
All right.
different topic.
We can't hear you.
Oh, totally different topic, not that topic.
All right. We'll come back to you in a minute. We're going to
No
let
worries.
Ivan finish his other question. Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
So
You're next. Go ahead.
the next deal is a completely separate deal. So I have a property that's completely gutted. It's not my property. I'm sorry. So a friend of mine lent out some money, $40,000 for a rehab in a second position. This is also in Florida. But the hard money lender is in first position, and they have some of the other rehab costs in escrow still, because there hasn't been any draws. Actually, there's been 0 draws besides the $40,000 in the second position. And the borrower, the investor completely ghosted everybody and is nowhere to be found. The home is basically down to the studs. So my friend who's in second position is trying to figure out, how can we get together and kind of make this project whole, so she doesn't lose out on $40,000.
So the money is sitting in escrow?
Some of the rehab costs, yes. The sale has
Where's
already
the-
happened.
So did the hard money lender fund the whole entire deal sitting in escrow? All of
Some of it, yeah, of the construction, yeah.
Not all of it, just some of it?
Correct, not all of it.
I would get an attorney involved.
Okay.
That's what I would do at this point.
Yeah.
Yep. That's especially if he's gonna go. So he probably doesn't have the money to fund the rest of the deal. That's probably the problem.
Yeah.
So I'll get an attorney, what I would probably do is try to have that hard money lender release all the funds and then just turn around and sell that property, or let her go into first position and have him release it if he's not going to fund it. I would have attorney do a letter to them, the first lender. If he doesn't
Mhm.
finish putting all the money into escrow, and why can't they release the first set of funds?
The
Is that
first,
hard
the
money
draw
lenders
process.
hiding?
Yeah,
What's
the hard money lenders is kind of hard to work with, and it's like one of those big hard money lender companies, and then they haven't
Wait,
completed.
So it's it's a big company.
Yeah.
So she needs it. So they're not getting to the right people in the company.
Okay.
I would go up the chain, go up to the chain. That's what I would do. And then if not, I would have an attorney send a letter to the CEO of the company. How long is it? What's this timeline like?
I think it was a year.
It's been a
total.
year.
Oh no, it's been a probably like 6 months total.
Yeah, I would definitely get an attorney involved at this point
Okay.
and just have them release and get a different hard money lender. That's what I would do at that point. Just have an attorney, have them release it since they're not doing a part. You may have to threaten to sue that lender.
Okay.
Get a good attorney. A good attorney will bite. It'd be money well spent. May cost a couple $1,000s, but it'd still be worth it.
Yeah.
And I would have the investor or whoever should be the one handling that. She shouldn't have to handle that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised he hasn't gotten an attorney yet. Sounds like she might want to just step in and take the property over herself and get him out, everybody out of the picture.
And that's what she's trying to do, but the contractor or the guy who's working on it, or the borrower, is nowhere to be found. Basically, that's what she wants to do, is just take over the project.
Then maybe she might want to start foreclosure. I would have her get an attorney and have the attorney look at all the different options. That's what I would do. Maybe and start the foreclosure process or something.
Foreclose for the second.
Yeah, she can start the foreclosure and then just try to get the property, have the first position moved out of the way. And
Yeah,
sounds like the guy's supposed to be doing the fix and flips at deadbeat. She should,
correct.
has she reached out to him or no?
Trying to, yeah, trying to.
Yeah, I would at this point get an attorney involved.
Perfect. Thank you, Mark.
Good luck with it. Okay, who was the next one that had a question?
Marcus.
Marcus.
Yep. How you doing? I just had a
How you doing,
question as
man?
far as how do you deal with the real estate agents and approaching an owner with seller financing? Because they got to get paid a commission and stuff. So
Absolutely. Yep. Yep.
how would you
I
approach
love
that?
real estate. Yeah, I love real estate agents because when they make money on the first deal, they're going to keep bringing you more deals. You know, that's the bottom line. So you want to work with the agent, educate the agent, treat them just like a seller. I don't know if you were on a call before when I was talking about treating them with like a marriage type of situation in the beginning, building a relationship. You want to do the exact same thing with the real estate agent. Build a rapport with them. Tell them what you're looking to do. Tell them that this is because I've done times where I've called the seller, I called the property up and spoke to an agent, and we built a rapport. They end up bringing me a whole different deal, and we end up doing deals instead of the one I originally called on. So, yeah, so
Okay.
it's all about relationship building. Tell them what you're looking to do. You're looking for an agent in the area you want somebody to go to work with. Just kind of go down that path and just tell them exactly. And if you do it the right way, you're like what I do is I like to buy through seller financing, negotiate low down payment through seller financing, and then get my tenant buyer that I put in there, use his money to pay the agent, pay everybody else. I've done ways where I even made payment plans to the agent on their commission, but I don't want to beat them up.
Okay.
I want to make sure that they're taken care of because if you take care of them and you structure your deal with the numbers, they're going to bring you more deals. I did 18 deals with one realtor one year
Wow. Okay.
because it's easier for them instead of working with 18 different people, different personalities, they knew how we would work together and they had it down. So it's a smooth process.
Okay. And what about the due on sale clause if they do have a mortgage on the property and if it's not, completely 100%
There's so
over?
many ways. I wouldn't worry about that. I mean, you want to set it up to protect yourself. Like I always like to put my stuff in a land trust. You also can do other type of situations. You can do like an agreement for deed or land contract. I've done it where I sign it. The deed doesn't get recorded. It sits in escrow. There's so many different ways of doing it, but usually depending on the situation, first of all, if they're not financial distress, I wouldn't even pitch a subject to. They're going to look at you like you're crazy, and the realtor is going to look at you like you're crazy. So you can try a different approach. Land contract, different deed, sandwich lease up. There's so many other options you can kind of go through, but that's in a lot of that's if you have a property. Why do you have one already in mind that you're trying to look at?
Yeah, I have a couple in mind. I have a couple in mind. I have one that is a little behind on their mortgage. They just want to get out. I'm working on that
Okay,
one.
so that's a subject too. Okay.
Yep, subject to. And then I have a couple of them. I live in the Philadelphia area, so I have a couple that are like in war zones that the seller's actually calling me about, but I don't want to deal with them too much. Um, but they're like so freaking cheap. I mean, like
And
people
what
got
would
to
you
live
do with
somewhere,
those?
huh?
What
I
would
would
what
rent
would
them
you
out
what?
to Section 8.
Okay,
I would rent them out to
that's fine.
Section 8. Like
Sure.
people got to live somewhere. But my other question was, in order to have a trust, do you have to have an LLC in order to have a trust, or can you just
Nope.
start a trust without the LLC?
It's the LLC. See, the land trust won't protect you for asset protection. That's why
Okay,
you typically put it in an LLC for asset protection. That's
okay,
the norm why we do it. Again, I'm not an attorney, but I'm just kind of telling you my experience and what I do. So what I would recommend is, creating a Wyoming LLC, and then you would want to create another LLC in your state because sometimes they won't recognize that be considered foreign entity. But you can have that asset and then have a property manager company control it and do all the work. But your asset protection is being held in Wyoming. So
okay.
again, I'm not an attorney, but I'm just telling you what I would do.
I got you. All right, sounds good. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I help. Yeah, I would
Yep,
just do them all day
helps a lot.
long. Just put them in trust. Just be careful putting them in the street name of a trust. I don't know if you're on when
Yeah,
I said that
I got that.
because yeah. So they're
Okay.
really easy to do. Just find a good title company. Title company can do it for you. I have my VA do mine. They're easier they're once you have them down, they're easier to do than a purchase and sales contract.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Cool. Yeah, Philly's you can make some good money. And you know, that's what I do in those not so landlord friendly states. When I underwrite my deals, I always underwrite it off of Section 8 if I'm going to hold it, that type of situation. So I look at my exit strategies, and that's one of the extra strategies I always pay attention to, um, depending on the state, because it's it could turn out. And then I usually do cash for keys instead of going through the process, depending on the state. And also, besides the state, certain counties could be landlord friendly too.
Yeah, well, I'm in Philadelphia and it's not landlord friendly at all. I mean, there's tenants, I hear nightmares of tenants in properties for like a year before, you know what I mean? The process,
I get it.
the
I
eviction
see it.
process and everything else. So, yeah, it's
I
horrible.
see it.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
horrible in Philadelphia.
I was talking to a couple years ago, a family had a townhome in Philly, and
Oh,
they bought it in their 20s, and then in their early 30s they decided to have a family. So they're like, okay, let's rent our townhome out so we can use that as a retirement while they move into a larger home to raise their children. Well, these people, they worked a system, didn't make a payment for 2 years, and this family had to dip into their 401k and IRA. Meanwhile, there was a brand new car out in front of the driveway, and they had photos of them posted on social media, them on Disney.
yeah,
They
that's
worked
crazy.
it.
Oh my God. I would have burnt the house down, dog.
There's actually a guy out of California, because California is really hard. It's called like squatter hunter.
Yeah. And what's that?
Yeah, he figured a way how to get through it.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I
Yep,
gotta look that up. Squatter hunter.
squatter hunter. It is. It's a good, interesting story how he got the people out.
Okay. I gotta look that up. Yep.
Cool.
Thank you for the info. Appreciate it.
Pleasure meeting you, man.
Same here. Thank you.
Awesome. Lots of great questions tonight. And again, if you are over on Facebook, feel free to drop a question in the chat. Just real quick, if you guys are really getting a lot of good information out of this, Mark does have his own mentorship program, and it's a great opportunity to get even deeper into seller financing and creative financing in general. So make sure I'm going to post a link here in a second. Just schedule a call, see if it's a good fit for you. It's a free call. It takes 15 minutes. And, just hop on a call. It'll be with Reese, and then he'll see if the program's a good fit. And, if you want to get some free properties, this is the way to do it. Maybe not 100% free, but zero. Mark likes to do like 5 to 10% down, right?
Me? Less than 5.
You like 0%, but
I do.
what's your average? What would you say your average percentage down is?
Um, I would say definitely less than 5%, unless I'm getting a lot of equity in the deal. Um, I actually like to see, you can pay a seller some money, but if you structure it the right way, I'm getting money at closing because I'm using my end buyer's capital. So, I may give a seller 5% in a sense, right? But then my tenant buyer may be putting 10, 12% down. So I like to structure the deals where I can get in with no money down. So even I may give them a little bit, but I'm still structuring in a way where I'm using my end buyer's capital. Now, if it's a multifamily or something like that, then it's a different story. Then I may bring a capital partner in, or I may do my own capital on it. But typically, it depends on the deal. Every deal is different. And I put capital into some of my own deals, but then I may bring other capital partners in because I have people always wanting to invest with me, and I want to make sure that I'm taking care of them, so I put them into some good deals as well. So it's a case by case. Every deal is kind of different, and depends on, like, people are always reaching out to me on different things.
Awesome.
So, but that's typically what I do. I will, again, it goes back to listening to the seller, finding out what they need the capital for. There's two things I always want to know. If somebody's bringing a deal to me, before we get into anything, I always want to know, why are they selling? It's the number one reason. Why are they selling? And what are they planning on doing with the capital? Because if I understand those two things, then it's easier to figure out what to do and help the seller and how much capital I need to get into the property. So that's kind of the reason why I like doing it. Okay.
Okay. Yep. All right. So I went ahead and dropped the link there for you guys over on Facebook and here on Zoom. Go ahead and just schedule a free call if you want to learn more about how Mark gets properties for 0%, zero down, $0, 0% of the deal, whatever. Just go ahead and schedule a call, and we'll see if the program's a good fit for you. And you can learn directly from Mark and his $500 million in real estate deals experience over 30, oh, not over 30, almost 30 years of experience. So,
Yeah.
all right, we got a question from Jordan over on Facebook. Mark, what's the best strategy to find wrap buyers before I have a close before I have closed on the property on the front end?
So many different ways. Facebook Marketplace has always done very, very well. Post it in some groups, not real estate groups. Well, it depends. I mean, if you're looking for a wrap buyer, most likely it's a homestead buyer. Otherwise, it'd be an investor. But if you're looking for a wrap buyer, I like Facebook Marketplace. I also like Zillow, Craigslist, bandit signs in front of the house and in the neighborhood. I like reaching out to building a relationship with mortgage brokers or loan officers in that area. And they have people that are trying to qualify to buy a property, but they can't, but they have a good down payment. And then I usually work something out with that loan officer. So when they go to buy the property at the end, when they need to purchase it, when they refinance it, that's where they'll get the loan back. So there's a lot of great ways, but usually typically Facebook Marketplace, and then sometimes I'll even boost it. And then if it's been like 2 or 3 weeks that I'm not getting any type of transaction, then sometimes I'll do the MLS flat list services as well. Yeah, so they're all out there. Now, keep in mind, if you're going to be putting a homestead buyer in there, you have to use a licensed RMLO. So you have consumer protection regulations. So a lot of people are not aware of that. So always make sure you're always running them through, especially if you're going to do a wrap. Now, if you're doing a lease option to the tenant buyer, then you don't need to run them through a licensed RMLO, but it's still good to do that. I even do it anyways to make sure that they're going to be able to buy the property because I want them to buy the property at the end. But if you're going to wrap it and you're going to create a note and everything, you have consumer protection regulations, and then most likely your state has it. So you have Dodd-Frank, RESPA, SAFE Act, and then your state will most likely have some. So, but they're out there. Just keep it. And then what I typically do is screen them, get all the information, have them drive by the property first, make sure they like the neighborhood before I before we waste our time doing a walkthrough in the property, because I don't want to bother the seller. And then usually I'll try to have it lined up to have like 4 or 5 people walk through the property around the same time, because then they see other people wanting it too. So you kind of create that, the scarcity tactic, if you will.
There you go. There you go. That's awesome. All right, I lost Facebook. There, he was out. He Axel also mentioned ghost ads.
What is a ghost ad?
Yeah, Jordan, let us know what a ghost ad is. When you maybe I don't know what a ghost ad is.
I think probably mirroring, taking a property and remarketing it. I'm assuming that's what he's calling it.
Okay.
But I just tell the seller exactly what I'm doing. And I had them sign that they're allowing me to do it. So I don't have any issues. I'm always upfront with my sellers exactly what I'm doing. It's easier that way. Just you can stay in business that way. And because if you don't tell them and then they see their ad, the property up, they're going to freak out. So you always want to be upfront with them on that.
Right. Okay, we have about 10 more minutes. So we can have 10 more minutes for questions. If you have a question, go ahead and ask away.
I think John does. He just came on.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and say something else. My guy, we had some big storms a few weeks ago, and his roof had a couple shingles that are broken now. And they said that we could go ahead and start an insurance claim through his insurance. Since he's probably dying soon, he doesn't mind if the insurance goes up a little bit, just as long as I pay the deductible on his insurance. Is that a good thing to go ahead and do?
Sure. As long as your numbers are going to be okay.
Oh,
What's
yeah.
your exit on this again?
My exit, I'll probably end up renting it, but I mean, his insurance deductible is only like $1,100, so it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
I'll get a new roof and maybe even gutters out of it.
Yeah, and most likely all they're going to do is just deduct $1,100 in a check that they send out. So say it's a $20,000 check, they're just going to deduct the $1,100 from that check.
Right. Okay. Sounds good. I just want to make sure that was a legit thing to do when you're working with all this.
Yeah, I mean, I would have one of the siblings handle it. you
Right.
work with
Okay.
whoever the sibling is.
Sounds good.
All right. So
Awesome.
Jordan, yep. Do you have any other? You good with that, John?
Yes, I'm good with that. That works. Thank you.
We'll come. Yeah, we'll come back and answer what a wrap is in a moment. Jordan, what's he saying here?
He said it's
Like,
like putting up a picture of a home that you don't own and just marketing it just to try to find these types of buyers.
I don't know. You can do it. Not a fan of it, but you could do it. Years ago I have done it before, kind of build up a buyer's list. So you put up in a home. So I don't know. There's so many different ways of doing stuff. I typically go down the route that I mentioned. Um, you could technically do it, but I'm not a fan of it. I'm more like trying to do things the right way, but that is an option. You are correct. So I'm not saying you can or can't. That's just your call.
Yeah, it's not. It doesn't seem like a very ethical way of doing it.
It's just because you're getting them looking at a property that they want and then they can't. But I know people do it, and I'm going to say I've done it years ago. Because I wanted some buyers, and so. But you can technically do it, but I'm not a fan of it. Okay.
Awesome. And we'll go ahead and talk about what a wrap is.
Sure. All right. So a wrap is, let's say I'm buying a property from a seller, and I'm buying it for $200,000. Okay. And they have let's say $100,000 equity. All right. Or whatever it may be. And then my profit, I want to do it. I'll give you an example. I'll give you exactly example of a deal that I did. Okay. So I bought a property. It came from a hospice nurse, because I have a hospice nurses is I have 600 bird dogs, and the hospice nurses are one of my bird dogs. So this hospice nurse, the daughter reached out to me. Her parents are in their mid 80s and the father's in hospice. So I gave them, it was too much for them to get the property ready. So I went and said, just whatever, take what you want, whatever you don't want, leave behind. I gave two offers, a cash offer and a seller financing offer. They went with a seller financing offer at a 7% interest rate. My payment to them is $991 a month. Okay. And I got 0 down, and I got 2 months of no mortgage payments because I had to get the property ready. Then I went and brought in an auction company, auction everything off, then use that money for some light cosmetics. And then I went and found my end buyer. I added $79,000 to that purchase price. Okay. And my end buyer rate is 7.75%, and his payment to me is $2,200. So at that $2,200, I paid the seller $991 a month. So what I did is I kept the seller's existing mortgage in place, what I did with them, and let's say it's 100,000, right? So then I added another $79,000 and then wrapped it. So that would be the new loan would be $179,000. So it's a wrap. So whatever the existing mortgage is in there, and then my difference equity goes into it, and I created a new mortgage and wrapping the first that was already there and mine into it. And they actually, in this case, they actually put $30,000 down too. So I actually made money, and I cash flow. What is it, about $1,200 a month on that deal? So that's what a wrap is. So, but typically I like to sell on a lease option. In most cases, unless the property needs a lot of work and I don't want to do the work, then I'm going to have my buyer take the deed, because I don't want to have a buyer put all this money into a property and they don't have access and they don't control the deed. Because then if something went bad and you go to court and say you do it a rent to own and they put $60,000 into a property that they don't own, the judge is going to look at you and throw like you're taking advantage of that particular buyer. So you'll be viewed as a predatory lender. So that's why, in that case, that's why I will, if they're putting a lot of money down, I will do more of a wrap situation, or if they need to fix up the property. Okay. Or, because usually on a lease option, they're usually putting around like 5 to 10% down. If they're putting any more than that, you want to have them have some type of control of that deed, what they call what's equitable interest. So just always do the right thing. When you do these deals, you always want to do the right thing for the seller. Always, always, always protect the seller. Always do the right thing. And you always want to do the right thing for the buyer. If you do that correctly, you'll have no problems. When you start getting greedy on one side or the other, that's where problems start coming in. You can make good money in this long as you're structuring the right way and you're helping the seller out and you're helping the buyer out. Never be greedy, because in this business, and you understand this, you'll be put into situations at times where you can take advantage of somebody, the seller or buyer. Never, ever, ever do that, because you'll get a bad name for yourself and you won't last very long in this industry. So I can't say that enough. Cool. We got just a couple minutes left.
Yep, just a few more minutes. So if you have a question, go ahead and drop it in the chat or hop on here and unmute yourself. We have about 5 minutes. So, Mark, do you have any closing statements as people get ready for another question if they might have it?
The biggest thing is just take action. That is probably the biggest thing. I can't tell you how many times people don't take action, or they're afraid. Um, I see a lot of times people are afraid to do contracts because they don't feel comfortable with contracts. If you don't feel comfortable with contracts, find somebody, bring a partner in that's good with contracts, or find a good title company. Even if you partner with somebody, or find a mentor, find somebody that's kind of guiding you through that process to kind of help you out, because otherwise you're leaving a lot of money on the table and not taking action. You want to take action, kind of move forward on it, and just pick up the phone, make sure you're making calls, and make sure you're sending offers out. That's the bottom line, is just kind of taking action, and then keep building a network. If it's your sellers, your buyers, your realtors, your loan officers, your attorneys, just constantly keep building network. And the biggest thing is make sure you're surrounded by like-minded individuals and people that are going to help you and lift you. If you're around somebody that's toxic and they're going to pull you down, separate yourself from them. That's how I really got into it. Years ago, I went through a process. I did the book, The Secret. I don't know who here knows The Secret, the book. Does anybody know what it is? Cool. So what it is it helps you manifest and you surround. So at that time, I used to, and here I'm going down a hole here, telling you about my life story here. So anyways, I would always date women in my 20s that were always toxic, it always it was always ending badly or whatever. So I did The Secret, and I cut out about 85% of my friends and family in my life, and I was alone. And I refound myself and kind of really figured out, and I started surrounding myself with like-minded visual people. The only problem, the one I could not separate myself from, was my mother. But I recognized and I understood her. So when it came time, when she was toxic, I understood it, and I kind of understood where she's at. So anyways, just surround yourself with like-minded individuals. That's probably going to be your biggest thing, is being around people that's going to lift you. And that's why I didn't have the internet back then. So I always had to go to these meetups. And you know, it could be a scary thing walking into a meetup your first time. You don't know anything about real estate and you're scared out of your mind. So that's a big thing. So yeah, I'm going to be going to Nashville. I'm speaking up there in 2 weeks, in Nashville. So I'm looking forward to that. So just get out there. Um, just feel comfortable. Don't worry if you don't know something, you'll learn it. Don't be afraid. That's one thing about this industry. I was on a podcast and somebody said, because I had other different businesses, and they said, what is the one thing in this industry that's what really was an eye-opening? And I said, you know what? The number one thing is your competitor. Your competitor can be your business partner. Other businesses, you want to keep your secret sauce to yourself. I have digital advertising, I had other businesses, but this business, your competitor, you end up doing businesses because the deals are bigger and you can kind of make more money together, and you work together and you can kind of grow together. So that's the big thing. And people realize that, all of us investors. Now, once in a while, yes, you may come across somebody that's a sleazeball, but look them up. This nowadays it's so easy to look somebody up and search their name, and you'll see if they screwed somebody over, because everybody shares it. It's a small world in a sense. So just make sure if you're going to do business with somebody, um, do a little research on them, search their name, and poke around and ask people, hey, do you know about this person, that person? How long have they been in business? And just pick up on when you're having a conversation with them, just pick up on certain words that they're saying. You can tell if you have a gut feeling that they're not going to be ethical and they're going to screw you over. Just go with your gut. So that's the big thing. So the bottom line is take action and be around motivated people. That's going to lift you. That's the bottom line. That's my closing argument there. You're on
I
mute.
think that's good. That's strong right there. That is strong. So, all right, my closing statement is if you want to learn more, just go ahead and schedule a call. You know, if you need to educate yourself on all this, and the best way to do it is to find a mentor. So, I mean, finding a mentor is going to take you to the next level, whether you think it or not. It will. I mean, Mark, you pay for mentorships, don't you?
All the time. I'm always learning in masterminds. I've always wanted to keep learning over the years. I paid some expensive ones, land development stuff, but I was in a mastermind. I'm not in it this year, but I was in a mastermind. There's 20 of us in it, and it was $18,000 a year. Mine's nowhere near like that, but that the way I look at it is think of a golf community. You're surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals and high-level individuals. We did some pretty big deals together. So
Okay, awesome. Well, guys, make sure to schedule a call. The link is in the chat over on Facebook and here on Zoom. Go ahead and schedule a call, and you'll talk to Reese. And then, if it's a good fit for you, talk to me, and we'll figure out how we can get you in, what we can get going for you, and we'll get you rocking and rolling,
take
partying.
care, guys. Be
All right,
well.
Mark. Thanks
I
so
see
much.
Ryan in here. Hey Ryan, I just want to give you a big shout. I see Ryan in here. It's just in the Zoom call or group call before we went in here. So he's got some stuff. So
Appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, it's definitely worth it. So appreciate
you
it.
learned some stuff. You learned some stuff on today's mentorship,
Oh
huh?
yeah, always learning. So it's a lot to learn. So I'm happy
Cool.
about it.
Cool. Well, pleasure. Thanks for joining. All right.
Thanks.
Let me know how you make out those that deal, by the way.
Sweet. I will.
All right. Take care. All right,
Bye-bye.
guys. Be well. Take care. All right. Ending it over here on Facebook. And